An orphan boy, a fateful strike of black lightning, and whispers from the starry sky. What seemed like a fairy tale soon unravels into a blood-soaked journey, where swordsmanship is more than just power, it's destiny. This is the Stellar Swordmaster, the manhwa that's driving fantasy action fans crazy. Join Flash Manhwa Recap as we uncover how Vlad, a nobody, rose to become a living legend beneath the stars. A handsome blonde young man stood in front of a sword shop, eyes locked on a blade hanging proudly in the display. With a sigh full of admiration, he muttered to himself, "No matter how many times I see it, this thing is just stunning." But before he could continue his poetic daydream, a voice chimed in, clearly unimpressed. "Knew it. You're zoning out again, aren't you?" The voice belonged to Gemina, a red-haired girl with freckles dusted across her cheeks and a mildly annoyed expression. "Vlad, seriously, have you noticed how distracted you've been lately?" she asked, arms crossed. Vlad barely turned his head. "Can you not? I finally get a day off." "Oh, a day off, huh?" Gemina snorted. "Maybe that's why people have been whispering behind your back about how you've been wandering around like some unemployed swordsman on vacation." That caught his attention. "Whispering? What are they saying?" Gemina leaned in, eyes darting left and right. Once the coast was clear, she dropped her voice. "Be honest. Are you still hearing voices when you pick up random stuff like, I don't know, a stick?" Vlad didn't answer. His silence was louder than a confession. Gemina wasn't done. "Seriously, what kind of sin did you commit in a past life to get struck by lightning on a sunny day? And not just any lightning, it was black." She was clearly referring to that infamous incident where Vlad got zapped by a mysterious bolt of black lightning. And now, she wasn't just teasing, she was worried. "Look, just stay inside the shop for now, okay?" she warned. "The new bishop's in town, and people say he's super sensitive to anything that smells like a sign or a mark. He used to work as an inquisitor, you know. If he even sniffs something off about you, poof. You're tied to a stake before sundown." Vlad immediately frowned. "Oh, come on. Don't jinx me like that." Gemina crossed her arms, clearly not in the mood for his denial. "Joke all you want, but I'm worried about you. You really think only 1 or 2 people saw you get struck by that black lightning? Everyone's talking, Vlad. You're basically the village mystery of the month. You stand around too long like this and next thing you know, poof, you're being escorted to the cathedral for a little purification ritual." Unbothered, Vlad slid his hands into his pockets and replied coolly, "I don't think they'll drag me to church just for admiring a sword." Gemina stared at him in disbelief. "You're unbelievable. You know what? Just buy the stupid thing already. It's expensive, though. Good luck." But Vlad wasn't having it. "Expensive? It's from some random blacksmith shop in a back alley. How expensive could it be?" Gemina shrugged. "You want me to buy it for you or what?" Vlad let out a long, dramatic sigh. 5 gold coins. Can you believe that? 5. Gemina blinked. "Wait, 5? For that rusty piece of metal? With 5 gold coins, I could throw a feast and still have change for dessert." Vlad gave her a look. "I know. You'd probably party for a whole year on that money." The two of them stood there casually, chatting like it was their front porch and not the entrance of someone else's store. Then came the shouting. "What did you just say? Rusty piece of metal? Get out of here, you little punks." An angry voice exploded from inside the shop, followed by a blacksmith who looked like he ate nails for breakfast and used anvils for dumbbells. Wielding a hammer that looked more like a tree trunk, he stomped out and glared at them like they had insulted his ancestors. "This sword is not for riffraff like you from the gutters," he bellowed. Gemina, unshaken, shot back without missing a beat. "Then who's it for? It's hanging in the gutter. Only people from the gutter even know it exists." "You senile old man, did you hit your head on your anvil again?" The blacksmith looked like his soul left his body for a moment. Senile? Did you hear this brat? She called me senile. Gemina was just getting warmed up. Why would you even bother making a sword only knights can use, huh? Are you trying to cause trouble or just feeling dramatic before you drop dead? The old blacksmith finally exploded. Yeah, I am about to die, you little brat. Now get back to your shop and wash some dishes, you bunch of useless alley rejects. Gemina's eyes widened in offense. Did you just call me a brat? I'll have you know, I'm a grown woman. Before she could launch into another verbal assault, Vlad grabbed her by the head and started dragging her away like someone removing a stray cat from a fish market. Let's go. Gemina, stop picking fights with random people. We're leaving. Even as she was being hauled off, Gemina kept twisting around to yell. I'm not even wrong. Someone had to say it. The blacksmith was left behind, veins practically popping from his forehead. You just had to keep running that mouth, huh? He growled, knowing full well he couldn't do anything to that firecracker of a girl. He stood there for a bit, grumbling to himself as they disappeared down the street. Damn spoiled kid. Never gone a day hungry, that's why she turned out like this. Back in the day, I fed those brats more meals than I can count. Rotten mutts. He turned around to go back inside, still muttering curses under his breath, but then something on the ground caught his eye. Mud. A trail of it right at the shop's entrance. The old man paused. So the boy stood here for a long while again. He bent down slightly, eyeing the spot where Vlad had clearly been planted for who knows how long. He really should just focus on surviving. Dreaming of more than that in a place like this. That's a fool's errand. I know better than anyone nobody born in the deep alley ever makes it out. He reached up and gently took the sword down from its hook, cradling it like it was made of glass instead of steel. I'll only sell this blade to someone who has a real chance of escaping this dump. I won't let my final masterpiece rot away in some back alley fantasy. The smith stood in silence, gazing at his creation. Then something shifted in his expression, like a memory creeping in through a cracked window. Even in a place like this, in a gutter hidden beneath the world's shining lights, someone was quietly burning with their own light. This slum, after all, was the shadow behind the brilliance of the Bayet family's prestige. The Northern Lighthouse, they called it. The heart of the Northern economy. So dazzling in its glory, no one ever stopped to look behind it. Behind that glow? A blanket of darkness. A slum full of filth and forgotten dreams. And that darkness was alive. In one of Sora's more colorful establishments, chaos was just part of the decor. Silk robes, drunken laughter, girls draped over customers like accessories, everything was business as usual. Until a scream cut through the noise like a badly timed trumpet solo. A large, barrel-chested man had a girl by the hair and was dragging her across the floor like he was trying to mop with her. You filthy little scam artist, he barked. You were supposed to just shut up and shake your hips. Who do you think you're fooling, huh? I didn't scam anyone, the girl cried, trying to keep her dignity, and her scalp, intact. But the man wasn't in a listening mood. I've been a merchant for 20 years, girl. 20. And you try to sell me fake opium? You think I wouldn't notice? What did you give me, powdered rice? Just as the situation was tipping from ugly to lawsuit-worthy, a new figure appeared on the scene, calm, composed, and clearly annoyed that peace had once again evaded him. It was Vlad. He stepped into the path of the commotion like someone reluctantly clocking in for overtime. The merchant spotted him and immediately pointed like he'd just caught a cockroach. Oh, look who it is. The candle seller. Perfect. Go get your boss. Vlad's face didn't move an inch. If his expression got any more neutral, it'd fall asleep. If you want to see our madam, you'll need to bring gold. Not silver. The man looked like steam might actually burst from his ears. Gold? With this kind of service? You've got some nerve. If she's not here, then send someone else. Your mother, maybe? Anyone in charge around here? The man scowled, brows scrunched like he was solving the world's hardest math problem. That candle you sold me? Total scam. I barely took out the wick and the whole thing burned out. Vlad didn't even blink. Not the type to waste energy on someone like this. What exactly were you expecting from a 5-minute candle? If you're broke, maybe just stay home and cuddle your wife. That did it. The man's ego practically caught fire. What did you just say to me? Vlad's patience was wearing thin. You could hear it in his sigh, long, exhausted, and 100% done. You want to test it? Fine. See that clock over there? Let's light the candle and check if it burns for 5 minutes. His tone turned razor sharp. If it doesn't last 5, you can do whatever you want to that woman behind you. The big guy huffed. Why would I listen to a scam artist like you? Vlad's eyes narrowed. His voice dropped a notch, low, cold, and dangerous. I said light it. But if it does last 5 minutes, I'm going to beat you to death. Something in that tone, the lack of hesitation, the quiet fury, made the man freeze. What the hell is with this kid? He thought. He's just some candle boy, isn't he? But by the time that thought even finished forming, Vlad had already sat down and lit the candle, calm as ever. He clicked his tongue. TSK. So who's the scammer now? The flame flickered. The seconds ticked by. People started gathering. Drama was always the best entertainment, and this candle showdown had suddenly become the main event. Time passed. Slowly. And then, finally, the flame went out. The big guy stared at the clock like it had just betrayed him. Wait, damn it. How long was that? Vlad, ever the gentleman, gave him a friendly reminder. Hey, generous rule, I even gave you a 1.5-minute buffer. Before the man could protest, Vlad casually swung a stick and smashed it right across the guy's face. There was a sickening thwack, followed by a dramatic spray of nosebleed. Then came the cold words. 5 minutes, you idiot. But Vlad wasn't finished. He followed up with a brutal kick that sent the man crashing through a nearby door like he was auditioning for a stunt show. Without missing a beat, Vlad walked in after him and calmly locked the door behind them. His voice dropped. His eyes gleamed. You're dead today. The man was panicking now. Wait. You scammed me first. Vlad didn't even blink. Instead, he threw in a few jabs while talking. A merchant, huh? Then why are you so damn fat? And what's this about bringing my mom, huh? That's real funny. Another punch. You know what's not funny? He stopped for just a second. I don't have a mom. What followed was not pretty. The sound of punches and screams echoed through the walls like a haunted percussion band. Cut to the next scene. Now we find Vlad with a suspicious frown, talking to an older man who was way too focused on his meal. I'm telling you, someone's messing with the candles. They don't burn the full 5 minutes anymore. Do you even hear what I'm saying? The old man, Georgie, was still chewing like nothing in the world mattered more than his lunch. Vlad wasn't letting it go. Georgie. Someone is sabotaging our business. This is serious. Say something, anything. Georgie finally looked up, exhaled quietly, probably about to say something wise and grandfatherly. But before he could speak, a loud voice cut through the air like a sword. What? Who dares touch the sacred roses of this place? A dramatic entrance. Vlad crossed his arms, clearly not thrilled. Great. Now we have to find out who's behind this mess. Marcellia chimed in immediately, all confidence and flair. Of course we do. So go on. Start investigating. Vlad blinked. Wait. Why me? Georgie, still somewhere between lazy and unbothered, finally decided to participate in the conversation. Well, technically, you've already found her. Found who? Vlad asked, now even more confused. Marcellia raised her hand slowly, looking only mildly guilty, though with her, it seemed more like a practiced habit than actual remorse. That would be me. I might have tampered with the candles. Just a little. Vlad stared. Marcellia gave a sheepish smile. I figured I could scam a few drunks, earn a little side cash. Nothing serious. Now, a quick introduction for context. Marcellia is the lovely, charming, and slightly unhinged owner of the Rose Smile brothel, the place where all of this chaos had taken place. And after her casual confession, the two men in the room had officially run out of words. Cut to Vlad walking out of the room, sighing like a man who had just aged 10 years. So, turns out I beat up an innocent guy. He looked off into the distance, narrating to absolutely no one. Well, what can you do? When the boss is the one causing trouble, what's a poor employee supposed to do about it? Just as Vlad was minding his own business, yet another character popped out of the shadows, like he'd been waiting for this exact moment all day. Hey there, my little brother, the guy called out with a grin that spelled trouble. Heard you stirred up some fun yesterday, huh? Doing a real fine job holding down the fort, aren't you? He took a step closer, clearly not here for friendly conversation. Crazy how all that went down while I just so happened to not be around. Makes a guy wonder. His tone got just a bit sharper. You made a few coins selling candles yesterday, didn't you? Thought you could keep that under the radar? Then came the real reason he was here, not that Vlad was surprised. Well, me and the boys, we've got places to be. Important places. But our wallets? Yeah, they're kinda tragic right now. He threw his arms out dramatically. Money's gone, man. Poof. Vanished into the cruel winds of capitalism. Vlad stared him down, voice colder than an iced-over grave. What do you want, Bully? Bully, the type who probably rehearsed smirks in the mirror, flashed a greasy grin. Relax, kid. I'm not asking for money. Let's call it a business arrangement. Vlad's expression didn't change. What kind of arrangement? Bully tapped his chin dramatically, like he was pretending to be a respectable merchant. You toss us a few coins, and in return, I've got something special for you. He whistled, and one of his goons dragged out a small, scrawny boy by the hair. The kid looked like he'd just tried and failed his first day at being a thief. A little pickpocket. Clumsy, slow, and clearly not cut out for the job, Bully said, holding him up like a cat caught stealing fish. Look familiar? Well, he's yours. 40 silvers. Total bargain, by the way. Vlad's jaw tightened. His voice came out through gritted teeth. And what about his fingers and ankles? Are those included, or extra? Bully laughed like he was being charming, which only made it worse. You think I'd be here talking to you if I'd chopped something off? Nah, just roughed him up a bit. Still in one piece. Mostly. Vlad let out a sharp curse and hurled a pouch of coins straight at their feet. Bully caught it with the reflexes of a man who's done this far too many times. Knew you'd come through. You're the pride of our little family, you know that? But next time might not be this easy. They dropped the kid off, still groaning, and started walking away with their payday. One of them glanced back and noticed Vlad's look of pure contempt. What? Don't look at us like that, he said. We're gangsters, not killers. Vlad didn't even respond at first. Just pure disgust in his eyes. You're skimming money off your own street kids and acting like saints. Pathetic. The group just laughed it off like water off a filthy duck's back. Told you, one of them said, nudging Bully. I told you Vlad would pay. That's why he's the one managing all the street rats in this city. Now you get it, the other chuckled. Guy's got a soft spot the size of the Central Plaza. Once the thugs had disappeared down the alley, Vlad finally spoke. The boy froze like he'd just been caught pocketing the moon. I'm sorry, Vlad. I just wanted to steal a little. He didn't finish the sentence. But he didn't need to. Vlad got the picture. After a short pause, Vlad asked flatly. Any broken bones? The kid shook his head. No, sir. I'm okay. That was all Vlad needed to hear. He pointed down the street without looking twice. Then get lost. Before I actually break something. The boy's eyes went wide, not in fear, but in awe. Apparently, not getting punched was the nicest thing anyone had done for him all week. Got it. Thank you, Vlad, he shouted as he bolted off like a grateful cockroach. Scene shift. Now we're near a dock, waves gently hitting the wood as another character enters. A ruggedly handsome man lifted a hand that was missing 2 fingers, waving it casually like it was no big deal. Kid looked fine, he said. You should have seen me after I tried pickpocketing someone. That didn't end with just a slap on the wrist. This was one of Hoover Harbin's whale hunters, and living proof that crime doesn't always pay in full fingers. He leaned in a little, lowering his voice. Anyway, word around town is that the Rose Smile's been playing around with the candles again, huh? Vlad blinked. That rumor made it here already? The man chuckled. Yeah. Been a while since gossip spread this far. But folks aren't buying it completely. I mean, we all know the madam makes the candles, but stirring up trouble like that? Doesn't sound like her. You know that too, don't you? Vlad nodded. That's what I've been saying. Even Georgie seems to be aware something's off. They're not the type to cause chaos just for fun, which means if they did, they had a reason. A reason? Vlad asked, raising an eyebrow. The man nodded, as if the answer was obvious. 90% chance they need money. Fast. And you know what that usually means, right? He paused, then added with a warning tone. Careful, Vlad. When a gang's scrambling for cash, it usually means one thing. A gang war's coming. Now, let's introduce the real power players behind Swara slums. The 5 kings of the underworld. First, we've got George, the night of prostitutes brothel boss and probably the only guy who could quote Shakespeare while selling lipstick-stained wine glasses. Then there's the butcher, a meat seller who may or may not be butchering more than just pigs. Black Bear, a man whose nickname is somehow less intimidating than his actual face. Dice, the gambler, whose addiction to chance is only rivaled by his ability to cheat at literally everything. And finally the man who just walked in, Jack the Greedy, a guy with a hook for a hand and the personality of a debt collector who's 2 days late for murder. He showed up without a word, that iron hook of his gleaming in the light, and barked at Vlad like he owned the place. You little rats. Where's your boss? There, it was the classic sign. Trouble doesn't knock. It kicks the door in with a pirate hook and demands rent. Vlad looked up from where he sat, eyes meeting the towering figure of Jack. The man was massive, like someone had packed a gorilla into a coat and given it dead issues. He wasn't smiling out of kindness. That grin was pure predator. And Vlad? He was already thinking 5 steps ahead. So Jack came here himself. That greedy bastard usually never moves unless it's serious. Vlad squinted, furrowed his brow and leaned back in his chair, silently processing. Does this mean we're heading into a full-blown war? So Jack the Greedy had brought backup. And by backup, we mean the most annoying, bottom-tier, henchman-looking dude you could imagine. This guy, face all scrunched up like a dried raisin in debt, stared at Vlad, who was still silent as ever. Hey, he barked, waving his hand like a cranky old cat. Boss Jack asked you a question. Still, Vlad didn't budge. His expression didn't change, but something about him shifted. The air got tense. His blue eyes lit up like someone had just activated his combat mode, straight high-beam headlight vibes. He slowly turned to face the henchman, looked him over like he was scanning a broken stick someone left on the floor, and calmly replied. I don't know. I just sell candles. No drama. No emotion. Just maximum deadpan. The henchman? Yeah, his brain just blue-screened. You could hear the overheating. His eyes practically exploded out of his skull. "Why, you little punk," he stuttered, steam practically pouring out of his ears. He stomped up to Vlad's desk and, in the most dramatic tantrum possible, slammed his hand down. Crack. The candle box on Vlad's table split in half like it owed the guy money. Candles went flying in every direction like tiny white missiles of chaos. "You don't know?" he screamed. "Then go find him. Drag your boss here yourself, you snot-nosed brat." By now, the floor was littered with candles, and the entire room had that weird silence that hits after someone breaks something valuable. But Vlad? Still cool. Still calm. Sitting in his chair like a discount philosopher monk. Meanwhile, the henchman, now standing among shattered wax and broken pride, looked like he was moments away from exploding into pure rage particles. His jaw was clenched so tight it might have snapped. Face pulsing with veins. And still, Vlad didn't even blink. The tension in the air? Thick. Like someone was ringing a broken bicycle bell. And so, there they stood. Vlad, the human brick wall. And the henchman, vibrating like a microwave about to explode. Behind Vlad, a small army of street gangsters had gathered, packed together like sardines with anger management issues. The floor was a battlefield of shattered candle pieces and wood splinters. Curious bystanders hovered nearby, watching with that awkward expression like, should we help, or just keep watching and pretend we're not here? The girls at the bar were sweating bullets, unsure whether to call for help or just slowly back into the kitchen. The drunk old man? One dropped his cup mid-sip, spilling booze down his beard as he gaped. Even Gemina was standing there with her eyes wide open and mouth frozen in shock, like she just saw a cat do taxes. And then came Vlad's voice, drifting through the chaos like a tired shopkeeper after someone broke his favorite mug. "Well, that's that. Everything's ruined." The henchman's expression screamed what the actual hell. But Vlad wasn't done. He slowly dropped down on one knee, as if paying respects to the fallen candles. With his walking stick, he gently poked the broken remains. "Totally wrecked. Guess I won't be selling anything today." The henchman, already vibrating with rage, stared at Vlad like he just got spit on in 4K. "Are you blind or just plain stupid?" But Vlad, still on one knee, looked up at the guy, tilting his head slightly like he was observing an oddly shaped potato. Then he muttered, low and ominous, "Hey, your leg." The thug blinked. "My what?" Vlad's icy blue eyes lit up like they just unlocked a boss battle. He slowly raised his head, locked eyes with the goon, and with the calm of a storm before a beatdown, replied, "Your leg. It's about to come off." There was silence. Then steam. Then full red alert mode. The henchman's face turned tomato red, every vein in his head popping like overcooked noodles. His jaw clenched so hard it could cut diamonds, and his lips trembled with rage. While Vlad was still kneeling like he was contemplating the meaning of broken candles, the henchman finally snapped. He charged in like a rabid bull in a wax shop, screaming at the top of his lungs. "You little piece of trash. Now, fighting? That's just a part of warfare. But strategy, that's where the real pros shine." Just as the guy was winding up to land a glorious kick right into Vlad's face department, our candle merchant turned war general locked in. No wasted movement. No emotion. Just cold execution. Vlad's eyes narrowed. His brows furrowed with the intensity of someone who just smelled a bad deal. And then, snap. He swung his walking stick low and cracked it right into the thug's shin with surgical precision. The result? The guy screamed like a squirrel caught in an electric fan. His foot flew up. His balance? Gone. And Vlad? Still calm. Still lethal. He twirled that stick like it was a sacred blade passed down from generations of candle-selling martial artists. With both hands gripping the staff, his eyes lit up, literally, like a street lamp on rage mode. He stepped forward, wound up, and then... bam! A full power, face-seeking strike that smacked the thug right in the nose. Blood sprayed, eyes rolled back, and his whole body flew backwards like a ragdoll meeting gravity for the first time. The impact was so clean it could have been used in a training montage. He landed flat, unconscious. Out cold. The girls in the bar? Their jaws hit the floor faster than the candles. One looked like she was about to faint. Another had her mouth open so wide you could fit a loaf of bread in it. Even the drunks, who had seen many weird nights, were sweating bullets. This was next level. Vlad? Still standing there. Not a hair out of place. Just casually readjusting his grip on the stick like it was just another Tuesday. Jacques, watching the whole beatdown from his corner like some shadowy final boss, didn't even flinch. His face went dark for a second, then he cracked a sly, greasy grin, the kind that said, "Interesting. I could use this." In this dusty back-alley jungle, the rules were always the same: survive or be stomped. And today? Vlad was the one doing the stomping. He stood tall, cool as ice, cane in hand, towering over the knocked-out henchman like a candlelit god of violence. Then came that look, the one he tossed down at the guy like, "Yeah, I sell candles, but I also hand out free beatings, deluxe edition." And just when you thought it was over, surprise! The rest of the goon squad, aka discount villain gang, all turned red with rage. One by one, weapons came out, veins popped, mouths flew open with righteous fury. "You dare throw hands in front of the boss?" they yelled, charging in like angry toddlers with pointy toys. But right before the bar could transform into a full-blown action movie set, something clinked. Clank. Jacques raised his metal hook hand with the calm of a mafia dad at Sunday brunch. His voice cut through the chaos like a knife through toast. "Enough." Instant obedience. Every guy who was just foaming at the mouth with rage? Boom. Frozen. It was like someone hit pause on their inner rage playlist. You gotta wonder, do they listen to their mothers this well? Because the minute big bro Jacques speaks, everyone suddenly finds inner peace. Jacques, the beefy boss with the pirate hook and all the charm of a back-alley warlord, finally made his move. He looked at Vlad and gave a grin so wide you could count all 10 of his surprisingly well-maintained teeth. Clapping his one good hand against the metal hook with a clink that barely echoed, he chuckled. "I like this kid. Unfortunately, I've only got one hand, so you'll have to forgive the one-hand applause." Vlad? Unbothered. Unimpressed. Completely Vlad. He shrugged, voice flat as a desert plain. "I don't discriminate against people with disabilities." Now that caught Jacques off guard. The man had faced thugs, traitors, debt collectors, and tax day, but never someone like this. His head tilted back and he let out a wild laugh that sounded like a goat choking on gold coins. Eyes gleaming, he barked. This kid's got fire." Then boom tone shift. That friendly act dropped like a cheap mask. Jacques leaned in, the hook on his arm rising slowly until it nudged under Vlad's chin. A silent flex of power. He flashed a fox-like grin and muttered, "Let's talk. Just the two of us." In that moment, the air turned cold. Their eyes locked, both glowing like a pair of car headlights in a horror movie. Tension? You could slice it with Jacques' hook. The man leaned close, lips curling with mischief and menace. "Tell me, what kind of chaos are we stirring up here?" But Vlad, in classic Vlad fashion, didn't blink. No fear, no flinch. Just that deadly calm. He returned the stare with a voice cool enough to put out a bonfire. "I'm not sure yet. But honestly? They probably should have died a long time ago." Just when things were getting deliciously intense between Vlad and Jacques, a thunderous, off-key voice crashed through the tension like a frying pan through a window. "Money grubber. What the hell are you doing here?" It was none other than George, stomping in like he owned the entire block, cape flapping and smug turned up to maximum. Behind him? A squad so big, it looked like half the slums had decided to cosplay as bodyguards. He strutted in with a grin that said, "I pay taxes but only when I feel like it," and chuckled. "If you'd told me you were coming, I'd have roasted up some meat for you already." Jacques, seeing George's charming mug, immediately lost about 80% of his chill. His face dropped into a smirk that screamed, "I'm about to say something petty." He scoffed. "Yeah? I didn't know we were that close." George, still clinging to his corporate smile like a true professional, replied. "Well, since we've got guests down here, how about we get close now?" Jacques sighed, scratching the back of his head like someone who just realized they'd sat in gum. "Forget the meat. Got any cheap booze instead?" And just like that, George flipped faster than a street pancake. The friendly glow in his eyes dimmed, his gaze sharpened. "Maxella never lets her guests down," he said, voice low, hinting at something just beneath the surface. Jacques caught the signal instantly. His eyes twinkled with mischief, and he flashed his toothy, certified heartbreaker grin, replying with the confidence of a man who's faked his way through 10 tax audits. "Well then, guess I better try it for myself." After Jacques and his circus of loyal underlings swaggered upstairs, George was left standing downstairs like a bouncer waiting for his shift to end. He silently watched the squad disappear into the upper floors, patiently waiting for peace to be restored so the other customers could go back to pretending nothing ever happened. One of Jacques' crew, clearly more emotionally intelligent than the rest, politely helped peel their freshly flattened teammate off the floor. Meanwhile, Vlad was still rooted in place, gripping his cane like it was his emotional support weapon. Once Jacques was out of earshot, Vlad finally exhaled like he'd just survived a tax audit. Sweat still dotted his forehead. Turns out, all that calm composure earlier? Pure Oscar-worthy acting. "Man. I nearly died," he muttered, voice trembling just enough to be dramatic. Then his eyes dropped to the candle box on the floor. The poor things had seen war. Some were snapped in two, others shattered into thirds. Vlad stared at the carnage like a bakery owner after a cake explosion. "How many did we lose?" he whispered, full of sorrow. Suddenly, a familiar voice interrupted his morning. "Hey, superstar." It was Rack, strutting in like he owned the sidewalk, one hand in his pocket, a smirk on his face, and a backup dancer squad trailing behind. He sauntered up to Vlad, beaming. "Your boss won't shut up about you. I knew I had an eye for talent." Then, with the confidence of a man who once bought Twitter stock and didn't regret it, Rack leaned in and added. "You ever get tired of the candle life, come hang with me. I like you." Now, most folks would be flattered to be courted by a crime boss. Vlad? Not so much. He scratched his neck awkwardly and shrugged. "I kinda like it here, honestly. They feed me, let me sleep, and I even get paid. Hard to beat, really." Vlad's simple, honest answer clearly tickled Rack's funny bone. The man let out a belly laugh so loud it probably scared a few pigeons off the roof. Eyes shut tight from amusement, he slapped his thigh like he just heard the best dad joke ever. "Ha, well then," Rack said, still chuckling, "we can offer all that too. Food, bed, and salary. You think we wouldn't go all in to recruit someone like you?" And just as he finished that sentence, he casually flicked his finger, ping, sending a shiny little object spinning through the air like a golden frisbee. The glint caught Vlad's eye immediately. Rack smirked. "Come on, candles? You deserve adult money, kid. Take it." Vlad instinctively raised his hands like a baby bird expecting snacks. A gold coin landed perfectly in his palm, catching the light like a tiny sun. "A gold coin?" Vlad whispered, blinking down at it like he'd just been handed the Holy Grail. This is too much." "Ah yes, the oldest trick in the book, gold plus praise equals mild identity crisis." Rack didn't miss a beat. He glanced sideways at Vlad, grinning like a fox in a chicken coop. "Come over to my side, and I'll give you one of those every day," he said smoothly. "I am the greedy one, after all." And just like that, recruitment pitch delivered, Rack dramatically threw his hook hand in the air and shouted to his crew like a man announcing free tacos. All right boys, time to eat. Yes, boss, came the enthusiastic, perfectly synchronized shout from behind him as his entire mob marched off like some sort of mafia musical number. Vlad just stood there in a daze, eyes following them out. He stared down at the coin again, then looked off into space like a philosopher in a noodle shop. Huh, he seems really happy, he thought. Did their negotiations go well or something? Before he could spiral too deep into existential analysis, a voice rang out from the second floor. Vlad. He jumped slightly, whipping his head up like he'd just been caught slacking. On the stairs stood Gamina, one hand cupped to her mouth in the universal megaphone pose. George wants you upstairs, she said plainly, pointing behind her like a tattletale with a sense of dramatic timing. Upstairs, the vibe was noticeably different. None of that rowdy, table-flipping chaos like the floor below. It was peaceful. Quiet. A few guests lounged around sipping drinks and gossiping like bored pigeons on a wire. Vlad stepped in looking like a man who'd just seen a ghost, or worse, a customer asking for a refund. His eyebrows shot up so high they nearly left his forehead. And then, out of nowhere, a glint of silver caught his eye. A short sword appeared in front of him like magic, accompanied by George's signature dramatic delivery. I was planning to give this to you later, George said, voice low and serious, but considering the situation. I guess now's the time. Cue suspicious music. Vlad blinked, then blinked again. The man looked more confused than a goat on AstroTurf. What's with this cryptic RPG dialogue? Why the secret side quest? George's face suddenly turned grim, as if he just realized they were out of barbecue sauce. He leaned closer and spoke with the weight of a man who's seen too many candle scams in his life. From now on, always keep it with you. Vlad, bless his heart, just sat there looking like someone hit him with a bag of potatoes. But deep down, his instincts were screaming. Something was off. He could feel it in the air, like how you smell rain before a storm, or tension before your mom checks your browser history. He looked around. George was sweating. Marcellia looked nervous, too. Even the random folks upstairs who were just sipping their drinks looked like they were expecting someone to burst through the door yelling about dragons. Something serious had gone down between George and Jacques. Vlad could tell just from the weird, haunted expression on George's face. The image of Jacques' hook hand and George's forced chuckles flashed in Vlad's head like a bad dream. Then came the bombshell. From now on, George said, eyes narrowing like a disappointed teacher, you're done selling candles. Vlad's soul nearly left his body. He flailed his hands in the air like a kid who just lost his favorite toy and blurted out, wait, what? Then what am I supposed to do? Go collect money from shopkeepers? Or do patrols? Out of nowhere, George slipped into his wise old man in a fantasy novel mode. Stroking his beard like he was auditioning for the role of village elder, he muttered under his breath, eyes glazed over in thought. I got wind of something, he mumbled, that Jack, our favorite one-handed capitalist, has brought in someone from the outside. A mercenary. Word is, the guy used to be a knight. Vlad, ever the curious one and apparently not immune to plot twists, leaned forward like a gossiping ant. Like you, Uncle George? George didn't even blink. His eyes lit up like floodlights, but his mouth kept mumbling in that sleepy, dramatic tone. Yeah, like me. You see, Jack the One-Handed was a man with influence, a guy who could rally a small army just by scratching his hook. But when it came to George, Sir George, former knight and candle-based mentor Jack always hit a wall. A wall made of sheer, seasoned badassery. As George casually said, even a herd of sheep can't take down a single wolf, it was less of a proverb and more of a flex. And the meaning was clear. You could bring 100 men and still fall short if your opponent was cut from the knightly cloth. But now, if Jack had managed to pull in another knight, a real one, clad in shiny armor and dragging around a sword that could slice a piano in half, well, suddenly the scales of power weren't so tilted anymore. The uncle-nephew heart-to-heart was going surprisingly deep, until George suddenly dropped the pity act like he was auditioning for a sad commercial. With a sigh full of fatherly weight, he said, "We're at a disadvantage, Vlad. That's why I need you." Vlad blinked slowly, unsure if his uncle had mistaken him for someone else. "Wait, me?" He looked at George like he'd just been asked to carry the family business despite only being the candle guy. But George was dead serious now, shifting into old mentor-giving main quest mode. "I'll be giving you your first real mission soon," he said, all gravitas and no jokes. That line hit Vlad like a lightning bolt. He stared, wide-eyed, mind scrambling to catch up. He hadn't expected his candle-selling arc to evolve into plot-critical action quite so fast. Meanwhile, over in another corner of the city, sat Haben, a man with the mobility of a bookshelf and the charisma of a math textbook. The guy had lost a few fingers, couldn't walk, and had basically fused into his chair like a permanent prop. But oh boy, the brain still worked. He spent his days buried in books, learning letters and crunching numbers like some kind of accountant sage. He wasn't swinging swords, but he was calculating things that could destroy you financially. And that's when Vlad had an epiphany. Watching Haben, he realized that even a guy who couldn't stand could still rise, through knowledge. Through effort. Through math, of all things. And maybe, just maybe, Vlad could too. While Vlad was minding his own business, practicing sword techniques with the intensity of a shounen protagonist mid-training arc, a voice suddenly echoed in his head. "Oi, kid." Startled like someone just slapped his soul, Vlad's eyes flew open, nearly dropping the sword in shock. That voice again. "You need to drop your elbow lower. Honestly, are you trying to wave at the sky or swing a blade?" Vlad froze, face blank, expression somewhere between disbelief and deep inner regret. He scowled hard enough to cramp his eyebrows. "Seriously," he muttered, "every single time I practice, this guy starts giving unsolicited sword tips like he's my ghost gym coach." 1 month ago, Vlad had been hit by a bolt of mysterious black lightning, yes, black, and ever since then, he'd occasionally hear this disembodied voice inside his head. It usually activated whenever he picked up anything vaguely sword-shaped. A twig, a stick, once even a ladle. It wasn't haunting. It was just annoying. Grimacing like he'd just bitten into a lemon, Vlad clenched his eyes shut and let out a sigh of eternal suffering. Maybe instead of a sword, he groaned, "I should have bought holy water first." Done with ghost commentary, he dramatically turned away in protest, stomping off like a kid who just got told to clean his room. In his mind, he recited self-motivation quotes like a motivational poster with muscles. Ignore it. Don't feed it. The more you talk back, the more it talks. Focus. Focus. Give it your all. Always. With a renewed sense of discipline, Vlad took a deep breath, gripped his sword with both hands, and slowly raised it with ceremonial focus. He was channeling all his energy now. All his intent. All his willpower. And then, just as he prepared to strike, the voice whispered again, casually. "Lower." Vlad's eyes flared open like a character about to unleash a secret technique, and then without a moment's hesitation, he swung. The blade slammed into the ground like Zeus himself had yelled "Yes, chef," and threw a lightning bolt straight at the earth. Dust flew, smoke rose, and the impact echoed through the room like a mini-boss just entered the arena. A sword strike? Nah. That was a weather event. Something inside Vlad suddenly flipped like a pancake. 1 second he was stoic, the next he looked like someone just told him his candle stand exploded. Confused, sweating like he just sprinted up a mountain, he thought to himself, that felt different. If what I've been doing was just swinging a sword around, then this is something else. A strange glow began to shimmer faintly around him, the kind of glow reserved exclusively for main characters who are about to unlock something important. Vlad could practically hear theme music playing in the background. Sword technique, he whispered internally, as if saying it aloud might summon something terrifying. And right on cue, something was summoned, or at least, appeared in his head. A faceless, shadowy figure holding a sword that gleamed with dangerous elegance. The vision slammed into his mind like a plot twist he didn't sign up for. Vlad's face went blank, as if his brain had unplugged itself to restart. He blinked rapidly, sweat now racing each other down his cheeks. What even is this thing inside my head? He kept staring ahead like a goose that just realized it's been invited to a duck convention. Still, despite the panic, there was something strangely exhilarating about all of it. Meanwhile, the scene transitioned like a fancy cinematic cut. Night had fallen. The moon hung in the sky like someone had glued a giant LED rice cracker up there, lighting up the mountains in ghostly silver. Snow blanketed the landscape below, hills stacked on hills like poorly arranged marshmallows. And then, boom. Mood ruined. Out of nowhere, a hand slid into the peaceful scene like it was auditioning for a horror film. The hand was calmly, methodically wiping blood off a sword. Yes, blood, because why not traumatize the scenery? Standing there was Godwin, a white-haired warrior wrapped in a thick cloak like a medieval burrito. Cold mist billowed from his mouth every time he exhaled. "I can feel the winter cutting into my bones," he muttered, as if narrating a weather report from hell. His face was blank, emotionless. One hand gripped his sword, the other continued scrubbing the blade like he was cleaning a kitchen knife, not the aftermath of a massacre. No guilt. No hesitation. Just a guy doing chores after dismembering someone off-screen. Godwin wasn't heartless, no, that would imply he had one to begin with. Suddenly, a suspicious rustling noise slithered out from the shadowy depths of the forest. It wasn't just any ordinary squirrel scampering or wind whistling type of noise. No, this one had drama in it. Like it had a script and was here to stir things up. Godwin, who had been peacefully brooding in the cold like a villain rehearsing his monologue, immediately lifted his head. His silver hair caught the moonlight just right, making him look like a shampoo ad for war criminals. Now, most people when alone in a pitch-dark, dead-silent forest and hearing strange noises would either freeze or flee like their lives depended on it. But Godwin? Nah. The man smiled. Not a friendly smile. Oh no. This was the kind of grin that said, finally, some fun. He muttered to himself, voice low and laced with mischief, like a man too familiar with his own villain arc. Well now. Can't tell if you're careless, or just trying to bait me. Then, with the confidence of someone who's never been caught unprepared in his life, he began walking straight toward the sound. No hesitation. No slow creep. Just full speed, dramatic stride energy like he was walking into a job interview. Why? Midway through his forest stroll, he suddenly stopped. And without even turning his head or breaking posture, he casually spoke into the darkness like it owed him money. You over there. Stop hiding. I'm already here. Silence. The kind of silence that makes your ears feel awkward. Then, to break that eerie stillness, a voice floated out of the fog, just slightly confused. Are you Stonga? At long last, through the heavy mist, a figure emerged. Vlad. Eyes sharp, stance steady, looking like he'd just stepped out of a cold shower of destiny. The two stood face to face now, silent tension swirling in the air like invisible popcorn kernels popping one by one. Godwin gave the kind of nod only an experienced boss character could pull off and replied calmly, like this meeting had been penciled into his planner all week. That's right. I am Stonga. Then he narrowed his eyes just enough to look mildly amused. And you must be Vladdy. There stood Vlad, wrapped tightly in a pitch-black cloak like a stylish burrito of mystery. His face was calm, but every inch of it screamed, I don't trust you. And those eyes, those piercing blue eyes, shone like twin high beams in the dead of night, ready to blind you with judgment. Meanwhile, good old Grandpa Godwin was still mumbling on in the background, narrating the forest ambience like it was his personal podcast. His voice echoed through the trees with the same energy as a retired knight trying to sound mysterious for fun. He rambled something about Vlad's appearance. Born on the streets, they said. Huh. Blonde hair, blue eyes like that? Most folks would bet their left boot he's some runaway noble. But Vlad? Not interested in trivia night. Completely ignoring the walking history book in front of him, he simply raised a hand and passed over a red-sealed letter, like a very tired mailman who just wanted to finish his shift. "This is from the boss," Vlad said, voice flat as an iron. Godwin took the letter, cracked the seal like it was a fortune cookie, and started reading. His eyes narrowed. His lips curled. And then, of course, came the signature old man chuckle of dramatic foreshadowing. "Well, well, well," he muttered, a sly grin creeping across his face like he'd just remembered someone owed him money. And just like that, the forest suddenly felt colder, or maybe it was just Godwin's aura doing its thing again. So the enemies brought in a mercenary knight? Vlad didn't even blink. Honestly, he looked about as impressed as someone being told their coffee's out of sugar. No wonder the higher-ups were calling him in. Of course they needed someone who didn't panic at the word knight. Still icy as a glacier, Vlad turned on his heel, barely sparing Godwin half an eye, which, for Vlad, was practically an emotional outburst. His tone didn't change as he stated flatly, "I'll guide you. We leave the day after tomorrow." And with that, he started walking, cloak billowing dramatically like he rehearsed it in the mirror. Godwin stood there in the silence of the forest, staring at Vlad's back like he was trying to read hidden subtext in a loaf of bread. Then suddenly, his face crumpled like overcooked noodles. He folded the letter with the speed of someone who'd been folding regrets all their life, then sighed in a voice thick with drama. "Oh dear," he mumbled, dragging the words out like he was auditioning for the town's local tragedy play. "It's always the quiet ones." Godwin squinted at Vlad's back and muttered to himself like he was rehearsing an insult for later, "Not sure if I should be trusting this idiot." Vlad, whose ears were apparently set to petty detection mode, instinctively turned around. His expression screamed, "Excuse me, what now?" As he stood frozen in the middle of the snowy path, staring at the old man like he'd just been asked to lick a frozen lamppost. "I'm fairly confident I can at least guide the way," Vlad replied, keeping his cool but with just enough sarcasm to raise a snowstorm. Godwin, who apparently had made it his life's mission to roast Vlad at every turn, wasn't done yet. His scarred face scrunched up again, and his eyes, glowing faintly violet under the moonlight, narrowed in delight like a cat who'd spotted a mouse wearing tap shoes. He asked mockingly, "You think someone who mimics the mating call of a summer squirrel in the middle of a snowstorm is smart enough to lead us?" Vlad's poker face cracked. Both eyebrows twitched upward like they were trying to run away from the insult. But Godwin wasn't just roasting for fun anymore, he clenched his jaw, voice dropping to villain about to end someone mode. "If you so much as suggest that this area is clear of enemies, I will personally remove your head and plant it like a snowman ornament." To which Vlad, cool as ever, shot back with a calm glance that said, "Nice try, Grandpa," then casually turned around and walked off without missing a beat. Vlad, as calm as a cat napping in the sun, replied, "Please, just follow me. I really don't want to mess up my first assignment." Godwin, who had clearly expected drama, was visibly let down. His face went slack like someone had just told him his favorite bar was out of ale. "Look at this kid," he sulked inwardly. "I went all out creating a vibe straight out of a horror tale and he's not even sweating? Not one bead?" But just 2 seconds later, the disappointment vanished, replaced by a cryptic little grin curling at the corner of his lips. The old man suddenly stood there chuckling softly to himself like some forest wizard who forgot to take his meds. Still grinning behind Vlad's back, he mused, "Yeah, George is definitely going to like this one. A raw young lad like this? Prime material for sharpening." The forest around them was pitch black, coated in snow, and completely silent. The trees had lost every single leaf like they'd given up on life. Inside a shallow cave, the two of them sat beside a fire, trying to thaw their limbs. Vlad, for whatever reason, kept glancing over at Godwin like the man had spinach in his teeth. After a while, Godwin noticed the stare, raised a grumpy brow, and finally snapped, "Why are you staring like that? Never seen a retired knight before or what?" Vlad, clearly not trained in the fine art of subtlety, just kept staring at Godwin's face like it held the secrets of the universe. Even after being called out, he didn't look away. If anything, his eyes got bigger. And then he mumbled to himself without a shred of shame, up close, it's really. Before he could finish whatever strange observation was brewing, Godwin cut him off with his signature brand of grumpy disdain. You look like you just crawled out of a cabbage patch, he muttered, as if offended by Vlad's entire existence. Unbothered by the verbal jab, Vlad tilted his head, curiosity burning, and asked, so, where are you from? Godwin, clearly not in the mood for social hour, just grunted, Dacia. Upon hearing that, Vlad's expression turned from curious to downright unimpressed. He sighed, rolled his eyes like a dramatic theater kid, and muttered, a village. How exotic. Godwin, not used to being roasted by rookies, immediately stiffened like someone had just stepped on his pride. He clenched his jaw, slowly reached for his sword and growled, if you lead me in the wrong direction, I swear I'll behead you and sleep like a baby. While Godwin fumed, Vlad just looked at him like he was watching a toddler throw a tantrum. He casually unwrapped a slab of meat, glanced over and said, why are you so scary all of a sudden? Am I not even allowed to joke? But the real twist came when Godwin caught a glimpse of the meat. His face lit up like he'd just seen Santa Claus. He gasped, starry-eyed. Fresh beef. That's the good stuff. Surely you brought enough for both of us? Without missing a beat, Vlad crushed his hopes like a cold-hearted chef. Didn't pack any extra. You got nothing to eat? Godwin froze. For a moment, all the blood drained from his face. He slowly pulled something from his pouch, a mystery lump of something. It looked like food, but also like a fossil. He stared at it mournfully and muttered, I mean, technically I do. Later that evening, Vlad's juicy beef slices were sizzling over the fire, sending mouth-watering aromas into the frosty air. Godwin sat nearby, clutching that unidentifiable chunk of food he'd been dragging around like it was his emotional support snack. His eyes were fixed on the meat, and his brain was screaming, ugh, this smell is criminal. Unable to take it anymore, he suddenly reached out and tried to start a conversation like he wasn't just drooling over someone else's dinner. Hey, kid, he said, don't you have something you've been dying to ask me? Vlad turned to him, confused and chewing mid-bite. What's gotten into you all of a sudden? Godwin, acting like he'd just been offered a TED Talk slot, dramatically raised a hand and shut his eyes. One question, he declared, and I'll answer it. In exchange, I demand one bite of that meat. You won't get another chance. Vlad stared at him in silence, beef still in mouth, trying to decide if the man had simply gone mad from hunger. Instead of playing along, Vlad calmly exposed the obvious, without giving Godwin even an ounce of dignity. You want some? Just ask. What's with the drama? Godwin jolted like he'd been slapped with reality. Offended by the blatant call-out, he huffed, you brat. I have a reputation to maintain, you know. Ah yes, the reputation of a grumpy old man begging for grilled meat next to a campfire. Noble indeed. After that, Godwin straightened up, switching back to his serious knight persona like flipping a light switch. He leaned against the cave wall, arms crossed all official-like, but his mouth just couldn't keep quiet. Knights, he began, only accept rewards that match their valor. Too bad Vlad wasn't buying the act. The guy looked like he'd had enough of this retired knight's lectures. Without missing a beat, he cocked his head and jabbed, but you're retired now, aren't you? Godwin, trying to keep his dignity intact, replied calmly, but all this time, I've still been. Didn't matter. Vlad cut him off cold. He grabbed a chair out of nowhere and metaphorically slammed it right into Godwin's train of thought. Name? He asked, one-word interrogation style. Caught off guard, the mighty Godwin blinked and responded like a student caught cheating, Stonga. Then came round two. Age? Godwin, completely disarmed now, muttered obediently, 42. Realizing the kid had no concept of respecting his elders, Godwin tried to reclaim some authority. Hey, you, he warned, clearly trying to pull the adult card. But Vlad clearly had a hobby, and that hobby was messing with people. He grinned slyly and tossed another curveball. Do you know how to use aura? Godwin finally caught on. This wasn't just about teasing anymore, the kid had real questions. He closed his eyes with a sigh that said, I see where this is going. Then, like a tutor who'd finally accepted his fate, he answered calmly, every knight has the ability to use aura. But applying it in actual combat, that's a whole different beast. Vlad, being his usual serious self, suddenly blurted out a question with the intensity of someone deciding between pizza or ramen at 2 a.m. He looked at Godwin and asked, so, can you actually do it? Or nah? Now, this wasn't your average can you fix my bike type of question. It was the kind that hits your soul like a surprise exam. Godwin, caught completely off guard, just closed his eyes and smiled in that classic I don't know how to answer this so I'll just smile way. Then he mumbled something that sounded vaguely like agreement. Kind of. Vlad, no dummy, saw right through it. His eyes went wide as if someone just spoiled the ending of his favorite drama. Without saying much, he grabbed a few skewers of meat and shoved them toward Godwin like it was a sacred offering. Godwin raised an eyebrow, clearly suspicious. You could tell he was scanning Vlad's face like a lie detector machine. But Vlad's expression? Dead serious. Eyes locked, eyebrows furrowed, the whole I'm not joking package. That moment broke Godwin. The old man sighed, bent down slightly, grabbed his sword like he was about to drop some wisdom, and muttered, knights should only accept rewards they've earned. But hey, sometimes, we gotta treat ourselves. I've been chewing on dried meat for days, man. And just like that, he unsheathed his sword with dramatic flair. Vlad's eyes nearly popped out of his head. Internally, he was screaming, no way. Is this it? Am I really about to witness the legendary blade in action? A dramatic whoosh sliced through the air. The white-haired man with a scar that looked like someone tried to draw a cross on his face using a rusty spoon slowly raised his sword up to his face. He closed one eye like he was aiming a sniper rifle in a spaghetti western. Naturally, Vlad, our ever-curious main character, squinted and asked the million-dollar question. Why the heck did you just close your left eye? But the man didn't flinch. He held his sword up like he was in some ancient ritual, the blade pointing straight toward the sky. In his most dramatic voice, he replied, I must reveal the world that exists within my soul. At that exact moment, the air around him changed. The space turned ocean blue like someone just dipped the entire background in blueberry Gatorade. Take a good look, kid. This is the essence of what it means to be a knight. Suddenly, his sword lit up like someone stuffed a mini sun inside it. Blinding white light radiated from the blade, making Vlad flinch like he just got flashbanged in real life. He instinctively raised his hand to shield his eyes and probably his soul too. The man, now in full anime protagonist mode, swung his sword with the elegance of a ballet dancer who also happened to be in a shampoo commercial. That was aura. The real deal. His cloak flapped violently in the wind like it was trying to escape from his shoulders. Under the glowing moonlight, in front of an ancient castle, the man stood there catching his breath like he just ran a marathon he didn't sign up for. Man, this sucks. I feel like a total loser, he said between wheezes. Vlad, trying to comfort him but clearly not a therapist, replied, it's really not that bad. I mean, looking like a homeless guy is still a step up from looking like a knight who gave up halfway. The old man's wrinkled face twisted up like a raisin with feelings. He grumbled, I wasn't talking about how I look, alright? I meant what's going on asterisk in here. He jabbed a thumb at his chest, clearly having an existential crisis mid-sword flex. For a knight full of honor, I sure feel like a soggy piece of bread right now. Vlad just squinted like he was trying to read the emotional fine print. Then he spoke with that straight-up mission voice, I'll take you out through the secret route. You're not exactly dressed for a casual stroll out the front gate. Let's move. I'll prep a bath for you once we get there. And with that, the two of them slinked off into the darkness like a couple of overly dramatic theater kids sneaking backstage. The old man whispered, it's way too quiet. Vlad responded without missing a beat, probably because it's midnight and normal people are sleeping. Suddenly, both stopped dead in their tracks. The scene ahead was pure nightmare fuel. Bodies were scattered across the ground like discarded action figures, each one stabbed dead center with surgical precision. The kind of scene that made you think twice before saying, "I can handle horror games." The white-haired man's face tightened. "Does this place usually look like a murder buffet?" Vlad, still stunned, shook his head. "Nope." The old man hummed grimly. "Then someone got here before us." Vlad lowered his gaze. "Let's keep moving." They approached a hidden passage, the kind of secret only members knew about. The old man glanced at Vlad and asked, "And what about you?" Vlad answered calmly, "I'll take the main gate. I'll draw their attention." With zero hesitation, he bolted off like he had rocket boosters in his boots. Not even a dramatic pause. Just gone. After a good sprint that would make any gym teacher proud, Vlad finally stopped, wiping the sweat from his chin like he'd just done 10 rounds with the sun. The scene in front of him was messy, like someone tried to host a royal dinner and a battlefield at the same time. There sat Georgie with Maxella by his side, looking like two people who had seen way too much drama for one night. Georgie looked up at Vlad, his voice low and calm, like a wise mentor in a movie who's totally about to say something important. "You made it back in one piece. That's good." The greedy ones made his move. "Those money-hungry types, I swear. Crazy skills, though." Vlad, panting but alert, asked the big question. "What about Uncle Chu? Is he okay?" Georgie gave a tired chuckle. "It's been ages since I've had to go toe-to-toe with someone night level. Let's just say my bones remember every second. But more importantly, did you bring him?" Vlad responded fast, like a student trying to answer before the teacher calls on someone else. "I did. The front gate was crawling with eyes, so I had him sneak in through the back. He should be here any minute." Georgie's gaze sharpened like he'd just locked onto a boss target. "Good. Tomorrow we finish this greedy little punk once and for all. It's time we settle this permanently. By the way, what does he even look like? He's not wandering off somewhere weird, is he?" Vlad reassured him without missing a beat. "Nah, he's good. He seems like a decent guy, actually. Kinda fast on his feet, too." Georgie raised an eyebrow. "He lost weight or something?" "Well, good for him. A long life starts with taking care of the body, you know." Vlad chuckled softly and added, "Oh, and he can use aura too. Full-on night mode." Georgie blinked. "Wait, what?" Vlad stood tall with hands on his hips like he just dropped a mic. "I'm serious. Tomorrow's our day." Just as our two heroes were deep in conversation, probably discussing trauma and tea recipes, suddenly, the sound of heavy footsteps thundered through the halls like someone brought an army to a whisper-only library. Georgie jumped up faster than a cat hearing the can opener. His hand flew to his sword, eyes wide. He muttered under his breath, "So he really can use aura?" Vlad, still piecing things together, replied honestly, "Yeah. I literally saw it with my own eyes." Georgie's face went full serious mode. "Hide behind me. Stonga doesn't even know how to spell aura, let alone use it." Vlad tried to stop him, but nope, too late. The white-haired swordsman had already arrived like a surprise mid-boss in a dungeon you weren't ready for. Blood dripped slowly from his blade, decorating the floor like he had zero respect for mop-wielding janitors. His voice came out calm, but icy enough to give the whole room frostbite. "You've come a long way since then. It's been a while, old man." His eyes could probably cut steel. That's how cold they were. With blood still drying on his face, he cracked a wicked little smile and spoke in the calmest, creepiest voice possible. "You've changed." Georgie stood there like a war veteran who just walked out of an explosion, chest wrapped in more bandages than a medical drama, sword clenched tightly in one hand. Behind him, Vlad approached with the energy of someone wondering whether he should have stayed home today. Georgie was clearly in no mood for guests. His forehead veins were doing a live performance. His tone? Rougher than sandpaper dipped in lemon juice. Why are you even here? The white-haired guest answered with a calmness that made it 10 times more annoying. Duke Gaeta is dead. Complicated situation. Hasn't gone public yet. But give it a minute. The news will spread like gossip at a noble tea party. While saying this, the guy casually poured himself a full glass of wine like he wasn't standing 2 feet away from a man holding a weapon. He raised the glass like he was giving a toast at a funeral he low-key enjoyed. To the late, pitiful Duke Gaeta. That was the last straw. Georgie's eyes lit up with fury. He growled out something very not family-friendly and lunged forward, swinging his sword with enough force to ruin the flooring. The ground cracked open from the impact. The wineglass shattered midair. Wine splashed everywhere like dramatic slow-mo in an action movie. But the strike didn't land. When the dust settled, the smug guest was already behind Georgie, untouched, like this was all part of his Tuesday routine. And let us not forget Duke Gaeta's dear companion, Lord Sitmun. Hearing that name, Georgie snapped. He roared the name of his opponent. Godwin. Swords clashed. Sparks flew. The air itself seemed to get the memo that this was a grudge match. Godwin blocked Georgie's blow without flinching, his voice steady as ever. By order of the late Duke, the lone knight George is to return to base immediately. That's Lord. But Georgie wasn't having it. Not even a little. Sitmun is not my lord. Godwin smirked. Of course not. The Duke never expected you to obey. In fact, he was kinda counting on it. Steel met steel again. This wasn't just a fight anymore. This was personal. Furniture got launched like background actors in a disaster movie. Nothing in that room was safe. Vlad, seeing the chaos level hit 9,000, stepped in front of Maxella like a makeshift shield and shouted over the noise. Maxella, this place is a battlefield. We gotta go. This way. And like 2 people trying to escape a fire sale at a cursed department store, they bolted toward the nearest exit. After barely escaping the human blender upstairs, Vlad and Maxella stumbled into the lower floor, finally catching their breath. But guess what? A whole welcoming party was already waiting for them like they were late to their own surprise birthday ambush. Bully, clearly stressed and already sweating bullets, stepped forward. Vlad, what the heck happened up there? Vlad didn't answer right away. Instead, he sprinted to the balcony, looked down like a man about to yell fire in a crowded theater, and barked, "Bully, now's not the time for questions. Get everyone upstairs. Move." But just as his voice echoed through the hall, something crashed behind him. No, someone. George. A literal human missile, flying backward through the air like he'd just been personally rejected by gravity. He smashed through the door, somersaulted past confused onlookers, and plummeted dramatically to the floor below. Everyone froze. Eyes wide. Mouths open. No one moved. No one blinked. It was like time hit the pause button. Vlad gasped like his favorite character just got killed off. George. Meanwhile, back on the 2nd floor, Godwin stood there with the same face people make when they get bad coffee. He sighed and muttered like a disappointed dad, "You never fail to pick the dumbest option, do you, George?" Down below, George lay in a storm of shattered wood, dust clouds, and broken pride. People rushed to his side, terrified, sweating like they were witnessing the return of a fallen king, who really needed a nap. One of them barely got a sentence out. Chief, what just? George, clearly broken in body but still stubborn in spirit, started pushing himself off the ground like a man who refuses to be embarrassed in front of his coworkers. His entire body trembled like he'd just tried to fight a fridge and lost. Upstairs, Godwin watched this pitiful sight and rolled his eyes with maximum disrespect. But before he could turn away, a sword came flying toward him from who knows where. He caught it midair like he was born to deflect flying cutlery. Vlad, burning with rage, locked eyes with the smug menace. You could practically hear the anime music swell. He didn't shout, but his glare screamed, "Fight me." But Godwin? Not impressed. Not even a little. He gathered his energy, aura flaring, and launched himself from the second floor like an overpowered meteor. Vlad tried to stop him, but it was too late. The man was already in the air, aiming for round 2. Vlad yelled in desperation, "George, get out of there!" Godwin didn't hold back. He brought his sword crashing down right where George had just been lying, like he was trying to slice the floor in half for fun. But George, barely holding his broken body together, managed to roll out of the way like a half-dead action hero refusing to go quietly. Godwin glanced at him, voice cold enough to turn summer into winter. "You should have followed the Duke's orders that day." George, eyes burning with rage, snapped back like an angry uncle at a family reunion. "I'm a human being, not some mindless mutt. I don't take orders that stink like that." Godwin, clearly still in night mode, argued right back. "No. You're not just a man. You're a knight." The tension in the room hit boiling point. The knights loyal to George were already gripping their weapons, their eyes saying, "Say the word and we jump this guy." One swing away from a medieval mosh pit. Godwin, ever the dramatic diva, examined his sword with a sigh like he was too tired for this nonsense. "Tonight's been way too long. I need a break." On the sidelines, Vlad was not about to let this slide. Seeing where things were going, he sprinted toward the danger zone like a man who didn't value his bones. His eyes screamed pure panic. Godwin raised his blade. And that's when it happened. A blinding light, green and glowing, erupted from the sword like someone had plugged it into a nuclear battery. His eyes turned the same eerie color, and suddenly the whole room got upgraded from tense to catastrophic. Vlad screamed, "Stop!" His voice cracked, not from fear, but from desperation. Too late. Godwin slashed the air, sending out strikes so fast and blinding that it looked like someone had dropped a rave party into a hurricane. Energy burst out in sharp lines, wrapping around the room like glowing spiderwebs. There was no escape. No hiding. Each swing tore through space itself. The force was so overwhelming that Vlad had to shield his eyes, feeling the heat and pressure like he'd stuck his face in front of a magical leaf blower on max. And then, boom. Silence. The battlefield was gone. What remained looked like the aftermath of an explosion at a fireworks factory. Smoke. Rubble. Craters. Everything buried under layers of ash and confusion. Vlad, barely conscious, woke up coughing like he'd just inhaled 3 deserts worth of dust. His body hurt everywhere. His brain had zero signal. He looked around, stunned. What just happened? He raised his head and froze. The entire area was unrecognizable. The battlefield had been transformed into a wasteland, and the nightmare wasn't over yet. Right in front of him, the ground was littered with bodies. Blood soaked into the stone like someone had tried to paint the floor red with a fire hose. Vlad clenched his jaw so tight it could have cracked diamonds. He spat out a curse with all the rage he had left. "This is messed up." In the distance, someone stood there, still as a statue. That's when he saw him, Jogger. Face covered in blood, barely standing. Vlad's heart dropped like a rock in a well. He shouted his name, voice breaking. "Jogger." The second he saw all that blood splattered across the floor, memories hit him like a truck. One by one, every flashback played out in his head, like the saddest montage in an anime opening. Jogger. The first person who ever reached out to a lonely kid wandering through the Black Valley. The one who didn't just acknowledge him, but made him feel like he mattered. To Vlad, Jogger wasn't just a friend. He was the strongest man alive. The one who made him believe in something. And now, under the cold blue glow of the moon, that same man was being dragged by his hair like garbage. Godwin gripped Jogger's head like a trophy, totally unfazed. But inside Vlad's mind, something snapped. That boy's world, his hero, his hope, had just been shattered in the cruelest way possible. Rage? This was beyond rage. Vlad picked up the nearest sword like it had personally insulted him, and let out a scream that could scare thunder back into the clouds. The sword, yes, the sword, actually spoke up, trying to reason with him. Don't do this, it warned, probably knowing exactly where this was going. But Vlad was done listening. Logic had left the chat. He charged in, eyes blazing, and unleashed a strike so fierce it sliced through the very air. Godwin staggered, totally caught off guard. He blinked like someone just slapped a lightning bolt across his face. What kind of swing was that? How did some random brat from the gutter pull off a move like this? Godwin didn't even hesitate. He tossed Vlad a little compliment like it was a participation trophy. Not bad, kid. But Vlad wasn't in the mood for flattery. He roared and charged in again like a man possessed, yelling with every fiber of his being, "Die!" Unfortunately for him, that plan ended about 2 seconds later. Before he could even graze the edge of Godwin's fancy villain cloak, a brutal punch, or was it a kick, slammed right into his gut like a truckload of karma. Vlad went flying. And I mean flying, straight through the air, landing several meters away like a rag doll that owed someone money. Meanwhile, Godwin didn't even break a sweat. He stood there cool as ice, adjusting his stance like he was critiquing a student in fencing class. That move. That spin. Pure instinct. That's his natural defense mechanism. Vlad lay crumpled on the ground, curled around his stomach like he'd just eaten 5-week-old street food. His other hand clenched the floor in frustration, groaning like every breath was a curse. The sword, clearly smarter than everyone else in the room, spoke up. Aga. Breathe. Please. Don't pass out on me now. But Godwin didn't leave right away. Nope. He stood there, rubbing his imaginary villain beard, deep in thought. If I finish off this little pest now, what a waste. Even if he comes back someday with a sword sharper than his personality, it's still too soon. That's when a voice echoed in his mind, one he hadn't heard in a long time. The Duke's words. Watching something with potential is always entertaining, Godwin. With that, the smirk returned to his face, pure evil, like a cat staring at a cornered mouse. He stepped right in front of Vlad, who was still wheezing like someone had sat on his chest. You led me well, kid. A knight only takes what he's earned in full. Vlad, still half-conscious, squinted up at him. What? Godwin chuckled and casually tossed some pieces of meat onto Vlad's broken body. Not as a snack. Just out of disrespect. Let me clear a few things up. My name's not Stan Chicken. I'm also not 42. And because you've been treated unfairly, and because I got more out of this mess than expected, I'm giving you a little something back. But I'm also taking something with me. Because that's only fair. And winners get that right. Then, as if to slap the moment in the face, his gaze shifted toward George's lifeless head. Vlad's eyes burned. His jaw clenched so hard it might shatter. I'm going to kill you. Godwin didn't flinch. Didn't turn. Just closed his eyes and began to walk away. Don't expect life to hand you a second refund, boy. You just used up your one free trial. Godwin had already disappeared into the night, but Vlad wasn't done. He screamed after him with the fury of a shonen protagonist on episode 999. I swear I'll kill you, Godwin. I will. I promise. But the only response he got was silence, and the sound of his own tears hitting the ground like summer rain. Powerless, shaking, and completely wrecked, he watched the shadow of his enemy vanish into the distance. His voice cracked, his throat dry, but his rage was very much alive. Later, on a deserted road that looked like sadness had paved it, Gemina struggled to carry Vlad along. The poor guy could barely stand, let alone walk. Suddenly, his injuries kicked in like, surprise. You thought you were done suffering? He winced, collapsed to the side of the path, groaning like a dying cat. Sweat streamed down his face. Breathing? Optional. Survival mode, off. And that's when Maxella showed up. And she wasn't here to coddle anyone. She planted herself right in front of him and barked like a military drill sergeant. Get up. Get up. You want to die here in the dirt like a nobody? But Vlad? He didn't move. He sat there like someone who just watched their whole anime get cancelled. Eyes glazed. Soul disconnected. Maxella had enough. She slapped him. Hard. So hard it echoed across the field and probably woke up some nearby birds. Snap out of it, kid. You think you're the only one who's hurt? Then, with that classic Maxella intensity, she leaned in close and dropped a line that should be printed on motivational posters. You know what separates us from people rotting on the streets? We get back up. Seeing Vlad finally stop growling like a wounded animal, Maxella didn't miss her chance. Her voice dropped to a low, sharp growl, more truth than comfort. This is it. The moment. The kind of moment people like us can't afford to waste. She stared him down. They can fail, and still stand back up. You know why? Because they have the luxury to pay the price. But us? She gestured around, at the emptiness, the blood, the wreckage. This is what failure looks like for people like us. You fall? You die. We were born into that reality. We don't get second tries. Vlad froze, his mind flashing back to that nightmare room. Corpses scattered like broken dolls. A pitch-black house reeking of silence and death. That was failure. Maxella's voice trembled for the first time. Her hands gripped his shoulders, shaking him, not violently, but desperately. That's why you can't throw away the only chance you've been given. Please. Don't waste it. Vlad slowly lifted his head. No words, just a look. A look that said, I hear you now. Gemini rushed over, clearly worried. Hey, you good? Do we need to slow down? Vlad wiped the sweat from his face. His hand was shaking, but his eyes weren't. No. Keep moving. This can't be how it ends. Out of nowhere, a rough voice echoed from the shadows like a budget villain in a soap opera. There he is. That brat who works for Jobser went this way. Instant panic. Vlad grabbed Maxella's hand like his life depended on it, and to be fair, it kinda did. Crap. Run. They bolted down the narrow alley like two kids who broke the last noodle bowl at a family dinner. Behind them, the thugs wasted no time giving chase. The boss had spoken, and in this world, when the nest is gone, even the baby birds gotta learn to fly, or get fried. They reached the small alley, only to realize, poof. The pair had vanished. One thug scratched his head, confused. Where'd they go? Another chimed in with pure rat-hunting energy. I swear they came this way. Maybe they ducked into that side alley? The gang leader, who clearly hadn't brushed his teeth in about 6 years and was missing a few bonus pieces of his grill, clenched his one good fist. Listen up. We find them, no matter what. There's a fat reward on the line. He growled so hard it sounded like gravel being ground in a blender. They'll pay. For humiliating me that day? Oh yeah, they'll pay in full. Split up. They couldn't have gotten far. The two were hiding inside an old, half-collapsed house that smelled like forgotten soup and bad decisions. Gemina had to literally cover her own mouth just to stop herself from squeaking out of pure panic. Vlad, on the other hand, was holding a small dagger like he'd seen it in a cool movie once and decided it was his destiny. His eyes darted back and forth. They couldn't keep running forever. He turned to Gemina, voice low but serious. Gemina, stay here. Don't go outside until everything goes quiet. She looked at him, worry plastered all over her face. But what about you? He gave her that overly dramatic main character stare. I'll find a way. Those guys move in packs like rats in armor. If we stick together, we're both dead meat. But Gemina? She was not having it. Her eyes widened. She shouted in a whisper that still somehow shook the roof. No. We're going together. Vlad tried the soft approach. Maxella promised us, didn't she? She said she'd guide us. We just need to get to the monastery before sunrise, or find that creepy guy with the bell, whatever works. Still, Gemina wasn't backing down. She clenched her fists, practically vibrating with frustration. I said no. I'm not leaving you. And that's when Vlad lost it. He snapped, not in anger, but in exhausted big brother energy. Why don't you ever listen to me, huh? Are you serious? Do I look like someone who can protect anybody right now? Because, spoiler alert, I do not. Just as Gemina was on the verge of sobbing her soul out from sheer frustration, a voice suddenly called out from the shadows. Who are you people? Both she and Vlad froze like two raccoons caught raiding a trash can. From the darkness emerged an elderly man with a belly as round as a kettle and a mustache that screamed, I drink tea at exactly 5 p.m. He was holding up an oil lamp and squinting at them like they were lost delivery boys. What are you doing in my house? Gemina, still high on panic and adrenaline, grabbed the nearest knife like she was auditioning for a low-budget action film. Don't move, old man. The old guy squinted, confused but clearly unimpressed. What's wrong with you kids? You break into someone's house and start waving knives around like it's a parade? Instead of backing down, Gemina doubled down like a chihuahua with something to prove. I said don't move. I will stab you for real. The old man gave them both a long, slow look. The type of look only someone who's raised 5 children and a goat could give. Then, calm as ever, he lowered the lamp and replied. All right. I get it. Now put that kitchen knife down before you cut your own nose off. Gemina clenched her jaw. Her eyes were fierce. Her hand gripped the knife like it owed her money. Give me a sword. The old man blinked. What? That sword on the wall. Hand it over. The town's a war zone out there, and I'm not joking. I need something better than this butter knife. Vlad rushed to her side, panicking like a babysitter about to lose their job. Gemina. Put it down. But she wasn't listening. She had entered full street goblin survival mode. Give me that sword. Now. And just then, Vlad realized something. This wasn't just some brat waving a knife anymore. No, this was who they all really were. People from the back alleys. Survivors. Fighters. The kind of people who didn't ask for help. They took it. And now? Gemini was just like that too. The old man stared at them, his eyes tired and full of decades of disappointment. He sighed. Sad. That's it. Just one word. No drama. Just one soul-crushing, judgment-loaded sad. Gemini's hands trembled. Her anger cracked like old glass, and tears welled up in her eyes. Then, just as she raised the knife, Vlad stepped forward, ready to block. The old man closed his eyes, fully prepared to meet the afterlife via teenage angst. But what happened next was not an attack. With a sharp swipe, Gemini sliced off her own long, honey-colored hair. It fell like golden threads to the dusty floor. She held it in her hands, crying, and extended it toward the old man like some ancient offering. Here. I know it's not worth much. But I swear. I'll pay you back. I promise. So please. Please give the sword to Vladi. The old man froze for a moment. He turned toward Vlad with a raised brow and asked. You planning to leave? Vlad gave a small bow, trying to be respectful, even though he still smelled faintly of panic and blood. Yes, sir. The man squinted at him like he was inspecting a cracked teapot at a flea market. Then something shifted in his eyes, nostalgia, maybe. This kid, he thought. This kid is doing something I never could. Something I always wanted to do. He's not flying yet, but he's ready to spread his wings. With a deep sigh, he rubbed the center of his forehead and muttered. Kids. Always making grown-ups deal with their unfinished dreams. Then louder. Alright. Follow me. Cut to Vlad and Gemina trailing behind the man through a snowy backyard. The old man stopped beside a rusty garbage cart and pointed. In. Vlad blinked. In what? In the trash, genius. It's the only way out of town they won't question. Moments later, Vlad was buried under a glorious mountain of rotting cabbage, fish bones, and shame. He immediately started gagging. Ugh, what is that smell? Is that cheese from last winter? Snow kept falling like the sky was trying to erase everything. Visibility? 0. Morale? Also 0. The old man grunted and grabbed the cart handle. Gemina pushed from behind, completely wrapped in layers like a paranoid burrito. No complaining, the man snapped. Push. Unless you have a better idea, this is our ride to freedom. Just when things looked like they were going smoothly, a group of thugs stepped out from the shadows, blocking their path. Yo, Grandpa. What the hell are you doing dragging trash in the middle of the night? The old man's stomach dropped. Great. These clowns. One guy circled the cart suspiciously. He sniffed the air like a rat with trust issues. You dumping trash? At this hour? The old man's eyes narrowed. Then, Oscar-worthy performance incoming. Yeah, you morons. Because thanks to you blocking off the alley all night, I couldn't take my garbage out at a decent hour. My house smells like a troll's armpit. The guy gave the old man a side-eye so sharp it could peel potatoes. Dang. Grandpa's got a temper. Then he glanced at the figure walking behind the cart. Who's that? Didn't think you needed a babysitter. The old man grunted and rolled his eyes like this was the 18th stupid question he'd heard today. I'm tired. I bribed him with bread. What, you boys too good to push garbage? The guy wasn't laughing. He casually circled around and made his way toward the helper behind the cart. His hand already on his sword hilt. Look, I'm only being polite 'cause you're the last blacksmith in this stinkhole alley. But I gotta make sure this kid's clean. Don't move unless you want a new smile across your neck. And with zero hesitation, he whipped his sword upward and sliced the hood right off the kid's head. The old man's soul left his body for a second. Sweat poured like it had places to be. There she was, disguised as the world's most awkward teenage boy. Her once striking red hair had been hacked short like someone had done it with a spoon. Her face was dirted up and made to look as uninviting as a bad stew. She stood there frozen, trembling. And then, she spoke. Oh God. Why is finding food this hard? The guy blinked. His face twisted like he just bit into a lemon. Okay. Whatever. Just go already. The old man nearly collapsed from relief. As they started moving again, he side-eyed the soldier and grumbled. So? What exactly are you looking for out here? The soldier didn't even try to hide it. That blonde brat from Georgie's crew. The only one still missing. The old man grabbed the cart's handle, his voice grumbling louder than his knees. So, can I go now, or what? He was seconds away from rolling out when the soldier raised a hand, like an annoying plot twist in the last second of a boss fight. Oh, almost forgot. One more thing. We gotta do a thorough inspection. He gestured to his lackey with a nod. You. Check the cart. Inside that very cart, Vlad was lying under a mountain of questionable leftovers and expired cabbage, silently praying to every deity, old and new. He didn't even dare to breathe. Gemina and the old man? Both stiff as statues made of sheer panic. Then the soldier added, casually. Not here, though. Too dusty. Don't want garbage flying in my eyes. The lackey showed up carrying what looked like a homemade spear, one end sharpened like he'd watched too many survival videos. He pointed it at the cart. All right, let's move over there. As they walked, the old man was sweating bullets under his hat. Do I lead them somewhere else? No, no time. No other options. The spear-wielding lackey peered into the cart and muttered. Wow. That's a lot of heads. Then he turned to Gemina and gave her a long look, which made her instinctively look down, avoiding eye contact like a student who hadn't done her homework. After a brief pause, he sighed and said softly. Don't take it personally. It's just my job. And with that, he stabbed the spear into the cart like he was poking a suspicious pillow. Gemina flinched. The old man gritted his teeth. Still, the lackey didn't stop. The spear jabbed again. And again. Word is, he muttered, as if casually narrating a bedtime story. They've got people sweeping the river. So if he's hiding there, must be a reason. Just saying. Everyone froze. The spear grazed dangerously close to Vlad's ribs, literally an inch away from turning this garbage run into a funeral procession. Then the man pulled the spear back. No reaction from the cart. No blood. No screaming. Just stinky silence. He looked over his shoulder. All good. Move along. As the cart creaked forward, he called out over his shoulder. By the way, tell your brother we're square on that 40 silver he owed me. Vlad, still buried under cabbage and trauma, whispered from under the pile. Thanks. And just like that, they rolled off into the shadows, headed for the dump, but honestly, it already felt like they'd been through one. They finally arrived. The old man gave the cart one last push and mumbled like someone about to drop off emotional baggage, literally. We're here. He turned to the girl and nodded toward the vast open dump. That's the drop-off. She bit her lip. Her eyes already getting glassy. Goodbye, Vlad. Please, take care of yourself. A sudden gust of cold night wind swept through, and with it, the cart tilted forward, dumping Vlad and a week's worth of rotting onions straight into the abyss. The old man watched as the boy disappeared into the darkness, his heart strangely heavy. That kid's first step became an old man's forgotten dream. And it cost one little girl a whole sea of tears. Behind him, Gemina pressed her hands together and whispered a silent prayer. Her cheeks soaked as moonlight lit the trail of tears. A dark cave, faintly lit by an old campfire. Vlad had made it. Somehow. He sat on a rock, still filthy but alive, warming up beside the flames. Then, with serious anime protagonist energy, he pulled out the sword and raised it in front of him. You hear me? He asked, voice low and direct. The blade pulsed faintly. A voice responded. I do. Vlad narrowed his eyes. Who are you? Silence. Then. I don't know. Vlad raised an eyebrow. You're telling me you've been giving me sword tips, battle instincts, and weird cryptic advice, and you don't even know who you are. He sighed, but a small grin tugged at his mouth. Fine. Then let's do it this way. I'll be your memory. You'll be my sword. I don't care if you're cursed, haunted, or some ancient demon with a bad haircut. The only thing I'm scared of is having nothing at all. For a moment, everything was still. Then the sword spoke again, calmer this time. All right. Then let me teach you about what it means to wield me. If you think this video is insanely awesome, don't forget to like and subscribe, and turn on the bell to catch all the latest updates.